Hello everybody, welcome back to Enthusiasts, formerly called How to Stan. The second to last episode of the year, kind of a continuation, kind of not. We have to cover just a few things that have happened in Elon Musk's life since a couple months ago when I did an episode about him. But this episode, I want to more broadly zero in on his philosophy, the worldview and the people around him, shaping the conversation, shaping his opinions, and really the past, present, and future of Twitter. I truly think his business decisions are not actually an enigma if you understand his worldview, the way he thinks. And I've done a ton of research into that. Let's go back to the timeline from where we left off during the Elon Musk two-part episode, and then we will get to the broader theories and more about Twitter, not Musk. That's in the second half. In mid-May 2022, Musk is accused by the Twitter legal team of NDA violations because he claimed there's a huge presence of bot accounts. That's his excuse that he can't go through with his giant purchase of Twitter because the bot level has been more than Twitter said it was, and they deceived him. Twitter's countering with a threat of their own, but Musk then tweets a threat of his own, saying that Tesla is building, quote, a hardcore litigation department. The team will report directly to me, unquote. He also posted, quote, looking for hardcore street fighters, not white shoe lawyers. There will be blood, unquote. May 20th-ish, Musk goes to Brazil and meets with the leader at the time, Bolsonaro, who calls Musk's decision to buy Twitter a, quote, breath of hope. Early June, the National Highway Traffic Safety Administration confirms that over 750 Tesla owner complaints have been filed, alleging that Tesla vehicles have been randomly stopping in the middle of the road. This is also when Musk announces plans to lay off 10% of the salaried workforce and institute a hiring freeze. A Washington Post report a few weeks later revealed that Tesla Autopilot has been involved in roughly 273 crashes in less than a full year. Also around then, SpaceX fires a worker who wrote an open letter critical of Musk. SpaceX tracked down and fired an employee who had put together a letter calling his leadership a, quote, frequent source of distraction and embarrassment, unquote. He's also facing a $258 billion with a B dollar lawsuit for allegedly running a Dogecoin pyramid scheme. That's a whole separate story. Basically, he's accused of artificially helping inflate the value of this crypto. Little after that, the FCC approves Starlink satellites for use in moving vehicles. Early July, Business Insider reports Musk actually has 9 kids, 2 secret ones, with a Neuralink executive. Those kids were actually born just weeks before his daughter was with Grimes in late November. He then, joking not joking, tweeted, quote, doing my best to help the underpopulation crisis. A collapsing birth rate is the biggest danger civilization faces by far, unquote. Soon after, he officially decides to change the news cycle, bringing up his anger at Twitter, saying they misled him with the bot info. Twitter stocks end up dropping dramatically. They actually rise, though, 8% by July 13th, amid optimism that Twitter would win a legal showdown against Musk. Around the 14th of July, news breaks that his dad, Errol, has a secret kid too, and Errol jokes about how he has the same urge to help with repopulating the planet as Musk does. He previously told The Sun, quote, the only thing we are on Earth for is to reproduce, unquote. Soon after, Tesla dropped 75% of its Bitcoin holdings. In early August, following some reporting claiming Elon had an affair with a friend's wife, which he refutes, Musk sells tons of Tesla shares, making $6.9 billion, yeah, for real, with that sale. A Gizmodo report from August 9th revealed Musk admitted to a biographer he was not going to go through with the Hyperloop. That project was never going to really happen. Excuse the pun, but he planned to derail this project, the high-speed rail he promised would come to California. August 16th, and right around there, Musk is busy being influential on several fronts. His tweet really gets people confused about if he's joking or not when he suggests he may want to purchase the Manchester United football club. He also speaks at a MAGA donor event and subpoenas friend of his Jack Dorsey, former leader of Twitter. This is around when a supposed whistleblower says he has evidence to back up Musk's claims about bots. This is also when the news is not great for Tesla. People are apparently going to extreme lengths to prove the cars do not, in fact, run over kids. It's a long story. It's about the self-driving mode and making sure non-Musk fans know it really works. Actually, the National Highway Traffic Safety Administration had to issue a warning about this, condemning such tests. Mid-September, the same day this whistleblower testifies to a Senate committee, Twitter shareholders vote in favor of Musk acquiring the company. It's official. Soon after, a Vice report is out about Tesla recalling over 1 million cars, quote, because windows could injure drivers, unquote. Now there's an issue with the windows. Seeming to go against his previous bullishness about making sure to prevent AI's surpassing human power, now Musk is all in on AI. And at the end of September, he reveals this Tesla bot robot prototype. But he promised, don't worry, this will be programmed to never overpower humans. It will just take care of boring human tasks. He said he hopes to make millions of them. When BuzzFeed reached out, asking him to clarify further reporting how far along he was with the robot prototype, he emailed in response, quote, I hate BuzzFeed with the passion of 1,000 suns, unquote. This is also when, as he's unveiling the robot, a bunch of text exchanges become public that we're going to talk about later. Really fascinating stuff in there. Put a pin in this. Early October, Musk goes through with his offer. Twitter share values do jump, but two big investment firms back out of helping him fund this acquisition, which he does end up having to take out a ton of loans for. This is also when he tries to get into Ukraine and Russian politics, influence that weigh in on the war, and he posts a Twitter poll about what people think should be used to end the war, and voices his opinions, shaped heavily by those around him that we're going to talk about later. He also briefly threatens to shut down Starlink internet service in Ukraine if the US military doesn't keep helping subsidize its operation costs. And then he's like, fine, never mind, I'll just cover the cost myself. It's a weird about face, but he's threatening to withhold critical internet access from a war-torn country. His face was on some billboards in Odessa, but it's now being covered up. He also tries to give his take on Taiwan and mainland China's relationship, drawing praise from Chinese officials for saying Taiwan should acquiesce to some mainland demands. This is also around the time a BBC docuseries airs, The Elon Musk Show, in which a journalist says Musk tells him he thinks Grimes, his former girlfriend, is not real. She's a simulation his brain is created to be his perfect companion. October 27th, Musk officially buys Twitter. Nearly 500,000 users have moved over to Mastodon, a Germany-based company who runs a nonprofit Twitter alternative in a way. Musk's first orders of business: fire the CEO and CFO. Tweet at the @catturd Twitter account, I kid you not. Don't worry, I'll fix your personal Twitter problem. Bring a literal sink into the office to make your pun and post about it, saying, I'm the head of Twitter now, let that sink in. Reassure advertisers Twitter will not become a hellscape, his word choice. And make more money for Twitter, make it profitable. The latest by October 31st. I'm going to really start getting fast with these updates because so much happened each day after this acquisition. We simply do not have the time to cover it all. So I'll gloss over a lot, but here's some of it. Around October 31st, General Motors has suspended ads on Twitter. Musk has given credence to a conspiracy theory about a political figure's husband being assaulted with a hammer, claiming it was a scorned lover situation, which is just totally made up. Musk has made himself the sole director, dissolving Twitter's board. He has told his engineers to hurry up and reboot Vine by the end of the year. He told a bunch of employees to print out a ton of their code, then he changed his mind, so they all had to shred a bajillion papers. He creates a new plan where you pay $20 a month for verification on Twitter. He tells employees they need to have a draft for how to implement this new verification plan ready by November 7th or be fired. Meanwhile, Jack Dorsey is off beta testing Blue Sky, what he wants to make a competitor. The latest by November 1st and 2nd. Musk's net worth is down by $9 billion. He gets into a Twitter spat with Stephen King that, long story short, leads him to decide, fine, instead of $20, $8 a month. Yeah, I don't know how he did that, but officially now it's $8 a month to get a verified check mark. So people are having a ton of fun posing as fake accounts, claiming they're everyone from Eli Lilly to Mario. Misinformation is everywhere. This joke is going really far. He also has hired at least 50 Tesla engineers, moving them over to become Twitter engineers, despite the fact the Tesla team uses 31-year-old programming code, which is an entirely different language than Twitter's programming code. Tesla's code is 31 years old, Twitter's is 18. Much more modern, a totally different language. You can't just become an engineer for a different company overnight easily. Some people are finding out they are no longer hired by finding out they've been frozen out of their accounts, and Twitter's ad sales chief has resigned. By November 3rd and 4th, there have been mass layoffs, slot machine style. Workers are terrified, but thrilled if they're laid off, so they can at least get severance. They're terrified if they are just fired and don't get severance. They've been working about 12 hours a day. Many more advertisers pause their ads on Twitter, and Musk blames, quote, activist groups pressuring advertisers, unquote, as the reason they don't want to work with him. Far-right political figures in British politics have set up new accounts and rejoined the app. People who were banned for misinformation, for hate speech, whatever, keep getting back, and other users are quitting. It's really quite a drastically shifting figure of who's on the site. He disbands completely the content moderation team's work. Everything they've been doing, working on constructing a more ethical AI, improving safety tools, all that was just done away with. He gets into some Twitter feuds, posts a bunch of memes. He's tweeting through this. Then a class action lawsuit is filed because you just can't, according to the WARN Act, have mass layoffs at a big company like this without at least 60 days advance notice. And this should count as a mass layoff for sure. It's of 3,700 people. This kind of lawsuit was actually filed by the same attorney against Tesla for the same thing. When they laid off 10% of the workforce in June, that ended up being settled in closed-door arbitration. Twitter's current biggest investors, Musk himself, a Saudi Arabian prince, and the CEO and founder of the crypto company Binance, who has advocated before for Twitter to cut its workforce. California's Hyperloop is officially donezo. 500,000 accounts have been suspended, nearly 1 million people have left the site, and he is just out there tweeting but also attending an A-list Heidi Klum-hosted Halloween party. There was also a sad, literally sad and tear-filled Halloween celebration of sorts at Twitter offices where employees had to say their goodbyes to comrades. Around November 8th, the latest by then, Reuters obtained reporting about Twitter currently losing between $1.5 and $3 million a day through this new plan. Musk is rehiring some of the staff he laid off, saying, wait, come back, it was a mistake, I need you for this maintenance. Some staffers are so familiar with Microsoft Teams that this new transfer to Slack leaves them confused. So some accidentally make public a fire list. It's called the fire list. It was public until they realized, oh shoot, you're supposed to manually make it private or it's automatically public. One employee, whose comic-fueled commentary in the past has drawn ire at Twitter, was fired and disconnected mid-meeting during a project that was labeled high priority. When Musk visited the San Francisco Twitter HQ, this cartoonist handed him a note with his cartoon that said, quote, I hope you don't mind a court jester at Twitter or you'll have to get me fired, unquote. He has been fired, and the employee is suing. What really ticked him off was his cartoon showing a plane smoking and people pointing out Elon just fired the pilot. He has gone from saying free speech, absolutism is the way to go, zero censorship, to flagging, disconnecting a ton of accounts that are parodies. Parodying him, other famous people, but a lot of him. Making fun of him, parody accounts saying things like my wife left me, that kind of stuff. Making him out to be really sad and weak. So this is obviously getting to him and he starts banning parodies. One suspended account has now been hacked. The account of Imani Perry, who previously sounded the alarm about extremists on Twitter, her account is now hacked by a crypto firm Musk has peddled before. Musk continues to belittle journalists and say, power to the people, you should all get a blue check, delegitimizing credible sources and making it harder to even know who is a credible source. He has laid off 75% of the moderation team, and so that's probably the real reason all these advertisers are no longer wanting to work with Twitter. They're pausing their campaigns, and it doesn't even have to be the most directly political, but without oversight of ads and stuff, companies don't want it. A good example is like an airline does not want to have their ad show up next to a news story about a plane crash. Those types of associations viewers get, they try to avoid, and that is why advertisers don't just spend money wherever. They want to make sure they only partner with sites that are going to check that kind of thing, ensure certain things don't happen. In this case now, it happens to be a lot more hate speech that is back on the platform, and they don't want their brands ads right next to it. Employees don't know how to work together because half of their comrades have been fired, half the global staff is cut, and they don't even know who's still there and who got fired. Meanwhile, he's tweeting an average of 25 tweets a day, nearly 750 times in a month. An ex-employee, Steve Krenzel, tweets a thread detailing what he calls the least ethical thing he's been ever asked to do working there. And he tells a story about the way they're trying to get super granular, individual data on each user. And he refused to comply with this mass surveillance request, even after a ton of money to do so was offered. Jack Dorsey previously did run interference to stop this from happening. Not sure if that's still the case now that Jack is no longer there. Meanwhile, TMZ, so take it with a grain of salt, but TMZ reports Diddy helped out Musk acquire Twitter, chipping in a measly $10 million, as one does. Meanwhile, SpaceX prepares a Falcon Heavy rocket mission, and Musk is in court with Tesla. His pay package of $56 billion from Tesla has a legal challenge to it because his package of stock grants is more than the combined pay of the 200 highest paid CEOs of last year. 6 times as big as their pay, just for him. Mid-November, he has a Twitter Spaces conversation. This Q&A is so fascinating. I want to point out some of the most incredible quotes from it. Just incredible stuff. These are direct quotes. I think we are overstaffed. I don't have a great answer to that, but I can tell you philosophically, what works at SpaceX and Tesla is people being in the office and being hardcore. I love to see ads for gizmos. I love gizmos. I buy them all on a click. Even if they're not that great, I'd still buy gizmos. I love technology. I'll see content for gizmos, but not an ad or an ability to actually buy the gizmo. So then I have to send it to my assistant like, please buy this gizmo. You may have read that I sold a bunch of Tesla stock. The reason I did that was to save Twitter, not because I lack faith in Tesla. I sold the stock to keep Twitter alive. And the reason that we are going hardcore with subscribers is to keep Twitter alive. We're going to get through that recession and not be dead. I'm somewhat paranoid about dying in recessions. It's like Andy Gross's famous statement, only the paranoid survive. Well then, we are going to be paranoid and we're going to survive. Basically, if you can show up in an office and you do not show up, resignation accepted. First of all, I'm not familiar with security and privacy. He also admits Twitter may have to file for bankruptcy. And in 2023, the company may have a, quote, net negative cash flow of several billion dollars. Staffers who had not heard from him directly at all yet finally get an email from him November 9th. Saying the company has to change things to get about half of its revenue to become subscription-based. He also continues to insist no remote work is an option, and he warns, quote, frankly, the economic picture ahead is dire, unquote. The imposter accounts that really just spread an insane amount of misinformation include sports teams, a medical company, political figures, the Pope, O.J. Simpson, Twitter itself, brands. No one knows what's true anymore or who to trust. And a ton more higher-ups resign. A very scary email is sent to employees by legal head Alex Spiro, saying that Elon is, quote, willing to take on a huge amount of risk in relation to this company and its users, unquote, and ends the Slack message with a warning concluding, featuring a link for how to get whistleblower protection if you see something that needs whistleblowing. They say we will now self-certify. They will self-certify to make sure FTC compliance. Long story short, you just can't do that. You can't police yourself. Now here's some super interesting quotes from him again, from an advertiser town hall. We're not aspirationally dumb. We're aspirationally not dumb. But we have to be adventurous here, make some big leaps. I don't think hate speech next to an ad is great. I'm a technologist, and it can make technology go fast. I'm a big believer in having just a maniacal sense of urgency. Just go, hardcore. He's learning in real time what moderation is for, and so paid verification is a program that is just halted. No new applicants because the imposters are out of control all over the place. They need time to reassess that idea. The latest, as of mid-November, Twitter layoffs just keep coming. And we haven't even counted into this ultimate figure yet the thousands on thousands of contractors who had worked for the company who are now laid off. Musk is back on trial in the Tesla case. He keeps firing the employees who post about him. Although one user actually posted that buying Twitter is the closest Musk will get to donating to charity, and got everyone else to tweet it with him at the exact same time at 3 p.m. Eastern, saying they can't stop all of us. Musk is also personally emailing some tweeters like Kara Swisher, the journalist and podcaster who he didn't like what she said about him, so he sent her an email with screenshots and the subject line, "You're an a-hole." He continues to respond to people all day long on Twitter, and SpaceX buys a big ad campaign on Twitter. New reporting confirms that because of a fake Eli Lilly tweet that insulin is now free, the company lost over $8 million in revenue. Literal millions in revenue. And a lot of companies have the attitude of, it is way not worth the risk anymore to our companies to advertise on Twitter when someone can impersonate our company and give us the worst headache. Musk gives the remaining employees an ultimatum. You could take severance, or you could commit to a new, hardcore, as he calls it, version of Twitter. But you have to agree to this new, super fast-paced, intense, long-hour-filled work culture, which we kind of talked about his work culture, his mentality about that in the previous Musk episodes. He wants to bring that to Twitter, take the severance, or agree to that. A lot more people than even he probably thought fled, and about 75% roughly of the remaining staffers left. Those remaining often probably wanted to leave too, but they're on work visas and don't know where else to turn. The US tax team is gone. The finance reporting team, all gone. A lead web engineer, gone. Those who are working on the new version of Twitter Blue, gone. But he tweets, quote, "The best people are staying, so I'm not super worried," unquote. He keeps on tweeting a million memes, a million bad jokes. He also makes a comment about how he may get someone else to run Twitter, like he'll own it but have other people be like the daily managers, like he is with his other companies, not there every day physically. He also used a Twitter poll to decide some other major decisions. He's making policy via poll, and despite his fear of bots taking over, bots on Twitter, he uses a lot of Twitter polls which are very, very susceptible to easy hacking, easy bot usage. They're kind of meant just for fun. Twitter polls are meant to be goofy and not super secure and trustworthy. The Washington Post reports that most of the Twitter Blue purchasers, the new verified payment system purchasers, are now using it for things that the previous content moderation staffers would have stopped. They're promoting more crypto scams. They're posting some explicit stuff, some hateful stuff. He faces another lawsuit from a cancer survivor who says the no remote work hard line is discriminatory. At Capitol Hunters, who had been flagging people who participated in a freaking insurrection at the U.S. Capitol, now outs Elon Musk as a liar in a bunch of different ways, posts a bunch of receipts, basically outlines the records obtained, often just with FOIA and other just legal ability to obtain court records, because they're now publicly available because he sued so often. They've pieced together a different version of events than he claims, about where he got his degree, what he got his degree in, if he even did, what his immigration status was upon entering the US. He claimed to his biographer it was a weird technical reason why he didn't technically meet the exactly right class requirement to graduate from the school, because Penn had a language and history requirement, but then they dropped it, and so he was allowed to technically graduate even though they say they never dropped that requirement. He also at one point said he just forgot he graduated. Yeah, it's a lot of weirdness. That the biographer, Ashley Vance, you can tell he really likes Musk by what he buried, kind of, through omission. He points out inconsistencies in what Musk told him for the bio, about his past, his work, his school, his degrees, but the inconsistencies he flagged, he leaves for the appendix. Musk doesn't really care, I guess, because not only does he probably realize bringing attention to these tweets exposing his past will just bring more attention to what he doesn't want people to see, but also he clearly doesn't care because he signed an agreement with Twitter for the purchase, and that would require an in-depth background check. He signed permission for them to do that. He knew they might find this stuff out, but he didn't care at the end of the day. He also subpoenaed Stanford, I guess hoping they could defend him. It's a complicated story. Long story short, one board member of a school wrote what sounds like a hostage note that says, "Yes, I can confirm you were here." Very strange. November 18th, Musk is in Italy. A fanboy minister there calls him a genius and wants to talk. This person's a close ally to, ironically, a very anti-immigrant political figure. More accounts get restored. Twitter has officially lost 50 of its top 100 advertisers. Around November 22nd, reporting confirms an iPhone hacker, George Hotz, will now become famous for being a mentee of Musk as well, with a 12-week internship at Twitter to help deal with app issues. This is a guy also with a Tesla past. He had considered working for Tesla before, but a deal fell through. He basically works on driver assistance tech, the kind that Tesla just has built into the car automatically. So yeah, they're kind of rival companies, but now he's working with Musk on Twitter. Twitter Africa's staff are suing, alleging intimidation, discrimination, and a lack of protection, because some of them actually just moved to Ghana for this job. They need help relocating and getting more work. They also claim, until CNN reported about it, they were unable to participate in negotiating their severance. Alex Spiro, Musk's personal lawyer, ends a deal with an external law firm. A bunch of bills are coming due that Twitter is not paying. Thousands of dollars worth of travel invoices going unanswered, vendors' calls are being ignored, some nonprofits are no longer getting the Twitter for Good division's promised donations, and Musk also just makes employees themselves pay for more. Like, lunch on campus is no longer free. He claims that saves them $400 a person per meal, which I don't know. Are they serving caviar for every meal? I don't know. He also cuts some job benefits, including childcare stipends, which is good because who needs those if you require no remote work? Subsidized gym passes, phone and internet help with your bills, all that stuff. Software contracts are changing, corporate credit cards have been shut off, and someone from a different company of his, the Boring Company, instructs them to renegotiate other deals, like the one Twitter has with Amazon and Oracle. Musk now prepares an idea for a in-app crypto transfer option, among other ideas, for encrypted communication. He has a video conference with South Korea's president, getting excited about Tesla's potential in South Korea. He says he may just go make his own type of phone if Apple continues to give him an issue and might remove Twitter from its app store. It's very unclear if they ever actually threatened to do that. He claims at one point they did, but that seemed to be a fight he made up himself. And then when he later tweeted, "It's all good," Tim Cook made sure he's on my good side. That felt like a problem he made up and then solved himself. I don't know what happened. Employees who relied on job-associated healthcare benefits for things like IVF treatments, which Musk himself has benefited from, no longer get the health coverage because of their job termination. So some of them are mid-IVF cycle. There are other health benefits they suddenly have to pay for out of pocket. And HR is not helping because HR has been laid off. A bunch of right-wingers who are excited to promote hate speech are trolling and mass reporting left-wing accounts, creating this hit list, they call it, that has been circulating on Telegram. Tesla stocks plunge. They plunged the equivalent in market value of 3 Disneys or 6 Starbuckses in value. Musk continues to rail against what he calls a woke culture and a left-wing bias at Twitter and how he wants to restore the balance, which ends up really courting the extremes of the right. He also says now the verification plan to give everyone who wants one a check mark, to delegitimize the media is, he doesn't say that part, but I think that's part of his goal, is to manually have a human verify everyone who applies for the verified check. That sounds hard considering you just fired a bunch of people who might do that manual work, but I digress. By the end of the month, a ton more liberal accounts are down. Financial Times reporting alleges Musk has been personally calling brand executives to heckle them, basically, to restart Twitter agreements. And some don't want to unpause their campaigns on Twitter because they also just can't have feedback. What's the point? They can't get feedback about ad performance because the people who would get feedback have been fired or just can't follow up because they're busy doing 4 other jobs at once. An email is sent out saying, hey, prepare for layoffs on a regular basis for people who are considered low performers. The Wall Street Journal reports on Boring Company ghosting a bunch of cities, promising big tunnels to be built that never get built. Actually, a Republican in Maryland, Governor Larry Hogan, sped up the process to get a permit for Boring Company to work there, set up a tunnel there. But even still, the company just ghosted him, and then quietly deleted any mention of that Maryland project from its website. A COVID-19 misinformation policy Twitter had in place has been officially done away with, so lots of misinformation flourishes. Reed Hastings, CEO of Netflix, calls Musk, quote, the bravest, most creative person on the planet, unquote. Early December, now even more of the more extreme accounts are being reinstated, including people like a guy who started a white supremacist site, overtly white supremacist, who was banned back in 2013. He promises mass amnesty, as he says. All these accounts are coming back. Meanwhile, companies are not coming back to advertise, but Neuralink is helping him get some good press because they pitch the coin-sized implant, the chip they want to put in human brains, could be ready within the next 6 months. Now I want to go back to those texts. So many really revealing, fascinating ones were made public when Musk and Twitter were proposing getting into a legal fight in court before the purchase ultimately was made instead of suing. One thing I want to flag is that April 5th, 6th, and 7th, Elon texts about his plan for Twitter's future. But then it goes really south really quick, and he texts, quote, I'm so sick of this, unquote. By April 9th, he's texting about an idea to take Twitter private, so he doesn't have to deal with public shareholders anymore. This comes right after, at 3 a.m., April 8th, he texted Kimball, his brother, pitching an idea that they just start their own version of Twitter instead, which is an interesting parallel. If you recall, back in his Zip2 days, he was actually set to work with a different company, but then decided to go make Zip2. He was like, never mind, I'll go make my own thing instead of working for or with you. Here are some of the most revealing, interesting text exchanges. Yes, I read them all. I'm a nerd. Anyway, here are the most interesting parts. Number 1, Antonio Gracias texts him, I am 100% with you, Elon. To the effing mattresses. This is a principle we need to effing defend with our lives, or we are lost to the darkness. Talking about free speech, no matter what. Jack Dorsey texts admitting Twitter started as a protocol. Twitter should never have turned into a company, just a different kind of platform. And he calls it the original sin to make it a company and try to make money off of it and incentivize the wrong things. Yet he also continues to shower praise on Musk, excited that he is taking over. Musk texts him, please be super vocal if there's something dumb I'm doing or not doing. That would be greatly appreciated. Dorsey basically says, I'm putting the fate of the world in your hands by saying, I won't let this fail and we'll do whatever it takes. It's too critical to humanity. One exchange after a meeting with Brett Taylor is just so funny to me, out of context, so I'll keep it there. Musk texts great dinner and Brett texts really great. The donkeys and dystopian surveillance helicopters added to the ambiance. Gayle King, yes, TV's Gayle King, finds this to be a really cool, exciting moment. She says, don't you think we should sit down together face to face? As the kids of today say, a gangsta move. I don't know how shareholders turn this down. She wants an interview with him and is really excited about this. So some people are just texting super glowing praise and congrats to him. Others are actually laying out detailed plans for him, telling him what to do, and giving detailed pitches. Like Matthias Döpfner, who texts Game Plan 1, solve free speech, make it censorship free. Part 2, make Twitter censorship resistant. Keep pushing projects that have been worked on. Create a marketplace for algorithms, etc. Solve share price issue. We should get Mr. Beast to create for Twitter, suggest a different user to get Gen Z more hooked. He's also given ideas like charging for DMs. Those are coming from these texts. He also keeps texting about, let me know if I'm doing something dumb. And he texts once, let me know if I'm pushing too hard. I just want Twitter to be maximum amazing. He also texts, separately, I would like to understand the technical details of the Twitter code base. This will help me calibrate the dumbness of my suggestions. He also seems to express a dislike towards his job. Texting, frankly, I hate doing management stuff. I kinda don't think anyone should be the boss of anyone. But I love helping solve technical/product design problems. He gets pitched some crypto/Web3/blockchain pitches for Twitter's future direction. He gets mad at a leader of the company who is texting gentle pushback, and he says, I'm not joining the board, this is a waste of time, we'll take Twitter private. He brainstorms a bunch with Kimball, and they text about blockchain ideas, with Kimball replying, pros and cons, but let the games begin, which is just such a perfect summary text for how they're viewing this. To better understand who has been texting him these ideas about crypto and Web3, about politics, about free speech at all costs, it's helpful to get to know the libertarianism-ish promoting group dubbed the PayPal Mafia, the people who worked on PayPal, and have since gone on to take over the tech world, become super notable and very influential on each other's worldviews, and then they in turn have the clout and money to turn their shared worldviews into tangible stuff. Peter Thiel, who studied philosophy and helped with the messaging angle of things with PayPal. But following PayPal's sale, in the early 2000s, Thiel switched his focus to a bunch of political goals. But he said he was very proud to have helped fund PayPal, calling it a way to start, quote, the erosion of the nation state, unquote. He wanted more digital currency to help free the world, basically. Very libertarian. But this free speech absolutist almost bankrupted Gawker after they outed him before he was ready. In the 80s, he founded the Stanford Review and kind of made it a mouthpiece for his political views. He funded it, he contributed to it constantly, and over 300 Stanford Review alum later became workers at Thiel-owned companies. He's been roundly criticized for some of that horrible content in the Stanford Review, sexist views and worse that I don't want to repeat. He seems to not care for democracy. Quite an excerpt written in 0 to 1 saying Thiel basically believes, quote, founders are godlike, monarchies are more efficient, and cults are a better organizational model. More than anything, his views celebrate rule breaking. Thiel bragged that of PayPal's 6 founders, 4 had built bombs in high school, unquote. Peter Thiel has helped invest in and fund a bunch of real estate apps, Airbnb. Some of his pet projects flail out too, though, like his anti-woke bank, as he called it, and a conservatives-only dating app that did not take off. He also invests internationally and is trying, as of recording time, to get multi-citizenship to get a golden passport. This is a system where you get citizenship as a foreigner if that foreigner, in this case Thiel, promises to donate a certain amount, invest a certain amount of money in that country. Thiel had a very memorable line in 2009 that summarizes everything. He said he, quote, no longer believes freedom and democracy are compatible, unquote. This same speech included a call for more crypto and digification as freedom from the government and rules. He also promoted space expansionism and more sea exploration, which he called setting the oceans, which is a phrasing of it I've never heard before. You set the oceans. He wants to control the water, space, all that stuff. He saw the power of what he termed nihilistic negation, a type of impulsively reacting with anger that he saw as a very usable tool and started to weaponize for political ends, this reactionary instinct humans have when we get fired up. He's bankrolled and really helped skyrocket to prominence a ton of conservative political figures. The Thiel Foundation has given money to Machine Intelligence Research Institute. He's also employed a far-right, scandal-plagued politician from Australia. He basically has an international operation. His political prodigies are all over the place. Then there is David Sacks, who also grew up in apartheid South Africa, as did Musk and Thiel. Sacks and Thiel wrote a whole book calling out what they view as cancel culture for conservatives in college. And a bunch of terrible stuff, a bunch of fearful, hateful stuff I'm not going to repeat. He's also been investing in crypto. He co-founded his own knockoff of the Clubhouse app called Call-In, an audio-only conversation hoster, where he used to host a political show called Purple Pills, and actually his Purple Good Government PAC, that's the name, filed its first donor report this past summer. He's helped fund some big Democratic recall efforts. He's criticized what he calls wokeness. He reportedly was really coaxed to endorse certain candidates by Thiel. He owns several houses, including on what's called Billionaires Row, one worth $20 million, but he also has a Miami mansion and a home in the Hollywood Hills. But he says he's a populist, a man of the people, and Musk replies to him almost more than anyone. He spends his days talking to him on Twitter, and Sachs praises his views, Musk praises his views. It's quite a feedback loop, and Sachs himself has over 400,000 Twitter followers. He has in the past advocated for much less content moderation on Twitter. Others in this circle of Thiel prodigies, Silicon Valley types, people Musk knows or Musk's favorite people know and are close with. There's J.D. Vance, a politician absolutely bankrolled by Thiel, who in exchange has helped Thiel's projects get money too. Blake Masters, a political candidate who was very criticized for still working for and promoting Thiel Capital while on a political campaign trail. He has voiced a view of politics is important to not have any public support for. Basically, he really wants to disband public institutions and get rid of employees of the government. Similarly, Curtis Yarvin advocates for more of a monarchy system, where the society we live in is run by a CEO, and that's it. He also advocates they call it the RAGE platform, R-A-G-E, Retire All Government Employees. Yarvin was a prolific blogger for well over a decade who really helped popularize this whole red-pilled or blue-pilled terminology. Of course, it was in the Matrix, but he helped apply it to politics of who's been brainwashed. He also says red state people are hobbits and blue state people are elves, and elite blue state people are dark elves. I don't know Lord of the Rings metaphors, but do with that what you will. He overtly has called his work an anti-democracy blog. He has his own startup company that Thiel has helped fund, and he argues that we should just do away with democracy, because it's clearly not working. Let's just give up. Let's disassemble public institutions and start from scratch, and have one main guy lead the new type of world. He claims we need to get rid of the cathedral, a term he uses for those in power. It's his way of describing bureaucracy, basically, in a sinister way. He overtly believes in eugenics. He called Napoleon the Steve Jobs of France. Do with that what you will. He said some just horrific stuff about black people, about Muslims, and he has gotten credit for starting this neo-reactionary movement politically. Others who have texted with Musk, the Axel Springer chief executive. That company owns Politico, Business Insider, and he actually suggested, quote, "We run it for you. I'm serious. It's doable. Will be fun," unquote. The co-founder of Palantir, Joe Lonsdale, has texted him saying, Governor Ron DeSantis wants to help. Make sure you get this. Wanted to set up a meeting or something. He's gotten very glowing, excited tweets from Joe Rogan, Justin Roiland, Mark Merrill, president of Riot Games, SBF as he's called, Sam Bankman-Fried, really fascinating guy, but we just do not have the time to dive into his whole story. But he has baggage and was linked up with Musk through an intermediary and seemed incredibly eager to help pitch his ideas of the future to Musk. Everyone wants to pitch to this guy. They're either schmoozing or pitching, or both. We didn't even get to some of even more parts of the bonkers texts, like how politicians, media figures, very popular, influential people from various sectors with various jobs and backgrounds all have been texting him their ideas for content moderation, their ideas for funding, offers to help him with both. He fundraises without trying. They text him offers. He also briefly floated in a text, "Hey Gayle King, how about you tell Oprah she's welcome to join the staff?" I'm sure that message was celebrated. Just so much to process. And all of these guys have a certain, not just media bubble, but daily life bubble. A very specific way of seeing the world. And you've probably heard this term lately, more than ever, long-termism. And I want to explain long-termism because I think it's really important to understand how these very influential figures in our world see the world. It explains a lot of what they do. Long-termism is basically a view of the future as being way more important than present-day material concerns. That at the end of the day, if you have to prioritize one or the other, you choose preparing for the future, the far-off future, instead of preparing for tomorrow. So this isn't like one of those hallmark phrases you put on home decor about make peace with today, work hard today to have a rewarding tomorrow, that kind of thing. Keep the future in mind, the future's bright, not that kind of thing. This is like thousands of years from now. What do you want to be known for creating? What kind of new world will you have constructed? So if someone gave someone with this worldview a bunch of money and said, you can spend it to address, I don't know, the homelessness issue in a community. Or you can put that money into creating a device, a machine, an investment, some sort of project, some technology to make sure that future generations do not deal with homelessness. Where are you investing your money? They would choose the latter. So material daily needs are not really paramount. You could tend to who's right in front of you, or you could be busy with preparing for eons in the future. And while this may seem immoral and totally ignoring how the present influences the future, because the present is the past future, they actually don't see it that way. People who believe in long-termism view it as the most moral option to expand what humans are capable of. Technologically advanced society, and they view time as so finite that any second on a present day issue, any second you spend trying to make the present enjoyable instead of preparing for a rewarding future that reaches the maximum human potential and creates basically superhuman ability, that's a wasted minute. So every minute needs to be spent furthering humanity with these types of projects. Long-termism believers also believe in sort of the effective altruism view that caught SBF, Sam Bankman-Fried, the FTX crypto guy, in hot water. This effective altruism belief is that if you have greater means, more money, connections, etc., you should do most of the uplifting of others. It should fall onto the higher earners, the wealthier people and places to do the most in terms of spreading that power. So long-termists believe funding and boosting their global goals is, again, the righteous thing to do. That's what they were destined to do. And that it would be a waste of those resources to spend them on immediate needs instead. Similarly, effective altruists believe that there is an ethical way to get super rich and then spread all that wealth around. Which they often, once they get that rich, that's not always the case that they share it, but that's a separate story. Although this fearing human decline, if we don't do something about it, this kind of apocalyptic dystopian mindset is so not new. Even some Bible scholars say in the New Testament there is this mentality in how Jesus saw the end times approaching. But specifically where the philosophical and view of this as a moral imperative came from to take action on this worldview. That long-termism really got started by a lot of Oxford thinkers, and similar to the Silicon Valley group Musk hangs around, these guys seem to kind of have a bubble they brewed up their shared ideas and worldview with before spreading it. The types of causes they fund are the types of things Musk has funded and created whole companies around. There are a couple main areas long-termists want to focus. One is space expansionism, going to outer space, colonizing Mars like Musk has tried to do. One is procreation, fearing, being very preoccupied about the world's population declining and trying to avoid that. That's why a lot of them are fascinated with cryogenics type stuff, with clones, with technology that could really push back mortality, and even just with having a lot of kids. Sometimes we find out more secret kids than we realized. And reportedly, Musk's inner circle knows he is a proud supporter of people like Genghis Khan, a Mongol ruler. He admires him for his DNA tracing back to a significant amount of the population. One employee, speaking anonymously, so keep that in mind, but said that Musk started talking, dating back to 2005, about his desire to do what Genghis Khan did and fill the world with his offspring. So living longer, space expansionism, then there's transhumanism, which is about AI trying to prepare for this future fight, intellectual fight against computers, withstand the threats of machines winning, basically. The last tenet, which could be the most dangerous, is total utilitarianism. First of all, utilitarianism is basically an ethical theory about the end always justifies the means. That is their view of ethics. A good end makes a bunch of means ethical. Total utilitarianism is what long-termists believe, that we can suffer, we can mistreat workers, we can think on the fly, make a bunch of mistakes, move fast and break stuff, launch products before they're officially ready, really just rush through every idea. Our end goal will always justify any pain, worker suffering, etc. we cause in the present by rushing. It's basically end justifies the means taken to an extreme extent. And it continues to lead groups like Global Priorities Institute and the Forethought Foundation, who have actually been quite active trying to recruit young people into fellow believers through essay contests, scholarship options, things like that. Kind of like how Thiel has kind of created his own think tank of libertarians to spread his worldview. Some total utilitarians do the same thing. Some of these OG long-termists include Nick Bostrom, former head of Future of Humanity Institute, who said, quote, priority number 1, 2, 3, and 4 should be to reduce existential risk. He was really about, we don't have time for that. No immediate needs matter, because things like, and he explicitly cited these, Chernobyl, world wars, and the AIDS epidemic are, quote, mere ripples on the surface of the great sea of life. Musk has overtly cited and praised Bostrom multiple times, and it's notable that the Future of Life Institute, a partner organization, Musk has donated at least $1.5 million to. This institute was actually co-founded by a climate change denier who cites long-termism as the reason we shouldn't worry about climate change if it's happening now. That it actually would be better to worry about the future without worrying about present-day climate effects. They really kind of view the present as severed from the future in a way. These thinkers are super preoccupied with mapping out what their ideal utopia looks like. And in Bostrom's piece called Letter from Utopia, he outlined an existence where humans are now basically superhumans that have so much joy every day, quote, we sprinkle it in our tea, unquote. He also says, basically, if you don't want to embrace transhumanism, quote, forever preserving humanity as it is now may also squander our legacy, unquote. It's all about legacy, and anyone who's treated as a cog in the machine, it doesn't matter if you fall off the wagon or whatever. As long as the wagon keeps going. Mixed metaphor there, but you know what I mean. That you better get on board or we don't care what happens. He coined the term plateauing for those who failed to try to engage in this superhumanism and called them just really sad saps. He helped edit a book called Human Enhancement, which argued for the use of oxytocin and other chemicals to aid superhuman growth. Other notable figures in this circle include NFHI associate Nick Beckstead, who wrote a dissertation in 2013 saying, quote, saving lives in poor countries may have significantly smaller ripple effects than saving and improving lives in rich countries. Richer countries have substantially more innovation, and their workers are much more economically productive. It now seems more plausible to me that saving a life in a rich country is substantially more important than saving a life in a poor country, other things being equal, unquote. Then there is FHI member Toby Ord, who wrote The Precipice, Existential Risk and the Future of Humanity. He is very influential. He's contributed to a UN report. He has previously advised the World Health Organization, the World Bank, the World Economic Forum. He helped spearhead the term effective altruism around 2011. He claims the odds of climate Armageddon are actually less than 1 in 1,000, and that it's 2 times more likely we'll have a robot takeover Armageddon take precedence. Some extra illuminating bits of Elon's past. Musk planned, since university days, to focus on 3 avenues where he thought he could influence the future the most. Space, the internet, and renewable energy. Space expansionism, transhumanism, total utilitarianism, that kind of stuff. There's a really illuminating Stanford profile he gave in 2015, and part of the intro says, quote, as he told CNN, we should not be afraid of doing something just because some amount of tragedy is likely to occur. If our forefathers had taken that approach, the United States wouldn't exist, unquote. I read through the transcript of this talk that had that intro, and it really does serve as a good profile of him and his beliefs. He talks about the importance of a net outcome. Don't worry about major bumps in the road. It's about the net benefit at the end of the day. He also talks about how much he loves how forgiving Silicon Valley is. Investors will still flock to you and believe in you, and you can just try again and start another new company. He compared his impact to the Union Pacific Railroad and said his impact on innovation ought to have these big ripple effects. He also reiterated his determination to get entrepreneurs to Mars first, because if we're going to colonize it, the people who are more well off, who have a lot of money, and who have innovated their way to the top can make sure we start our human reputation, basically, with a good head start on the right foot on other planets. Interestingly, he also said, quote, obviously, ultimately, the government of Mars will be up to the Martians. You become a Martian when you go there. But I think if you said, how would you do democracy 2.0 or some version, I think we'd probably have more of a direct democracy than a representative democracy, unquote. Yeah, he's really thinking not just visiting Mars, but how we set up a whole functioning world up there. This is why there are so many times where you may wonder, why is he doing this? It all goes back to long-termism. Why is he mistreating employees and expecting they'll stay? Because he's in a bubble of people with this worldview. So he's thinking, don't you all think this way? Don't you all see it as the moral imperative to just hurry up and get my projects going? Why wouldn't you be willing to go hardcore, working 12 hours a day, and living with the fear of being fired the second you are underperforming? Don't you want that kind of pressure? Because we're working towards a shared future, a utopia. Play your part in that. Don't you want in? Why would you check mark the box saying, no, I'm out, I'll take severance? We're on this big future-creating mission. Don't you want to join? And because he sees himself as forward-thinking on a big mission, it also explains why he thinks threatening advertisers will get them to come back to Twitter. Don't you want a part of what I'm doing for the world? Reinstalling the town square digitally? It's also why he continues to make companies and have more people invest in them, even if he ghosts them. Because it's like, well, sometimes that happens, but the investments long-term, you agree they'll be worth it, right? And often he can get people to agree. And of course he's not worried about hate speech on the platform because that is a mere ripple in the sea of life. As his idol would say, he's focused on longer term issues. He doesn't have time for that stuff. Now he does have time to tweet all day, but he probably views what he's told his employees to do as furthering his goals enough. When you wonder, why would you do this? Why are these Silicon Valley people so trusting, so in belief of the power of each other's pitches? How do they get to keep failing and just start a new company or not get punished for the failure of the first? Why do they get infinite chances? It's because they're in this collective thought bubble and they're on the same page. It's okay, we can excuse whatever mistakes you're making now because we get your long-term vision, and it would be morally unjust for us to block that mission. So we'll continue to perpetuate it, continue to fund it, no matter how many bumps in the road or how many times you show you may not be able to succeed. We've got to try and we got to focus on this utopic future. So it's okay. We will give you a million chances because the end result will be worth it. At least trying for the end result is what being human is all about. I may dive into this topic more in the future if you're interested, so feel free to let me know. Thank you guys for tuning in today. I hope this was informative and helpful for understanding what's happening with these very influential figures in our world right now. And I'll talk to you all again very soon. Bye, everybody!